It takes a rare kind of soul to evolve in full view of a world that once misunderstood them. And yet, here you are, quietly rising, slowly turning into something even you hadn't imagined. Your journey isn't loud, but it echoes. Not because you asked for applause, but because your energy is starting to stir something ancient in the air. This shift isn't just growth, it's a reordering of everything that thought it had you figured out. Something deep within you has started recalibrating, as if an invisible compass locked onto its true coordinates. What others see as confidence is really alignment. What they admire as brilliance is really the result of you becoming honest with yourself in ways most wouldn't dare. And those who truly see it, they're not clapping out of politeness. They're stunned, watching a rare kind of self-respect turn into a force no mask can mimic. There's a reason you've been feeling pulled back just before stepping forward. It's not hesitation, it's awareness. You're not just moving with instinct, you're beginning to operate from a place that goes far deeper than logic. This isn't about vibes. This is about precision. The kind of clarity that feels like someone cut through fog with a blade made of light. You don't just sense danger anymore, you decode it. You don't just avoid the wrong paths, you feel the weight of every unspoken intention around you. While others still rely on patterns, you've begun reading the invisible blueprint underneath it all. But this level of perception doesn't come for free. It demands emotional stamina. Because seeing the truth is one thing, carrying it with grace is another. Some people never stop to ask why your presence hits different. They only feel it. But here's the truth, they're not just witnessing your rise, they're witnessing the unveiling of a rare kind of clarity. You didn't climb by chance. You shifted the entire architecture of your life with intention. And the way you're moving now? That's not luck. That's what alignment looks like when a soul stops shrinking to fit into rooms that can't hold its purpose. None of your recent decisions have been random. Every step, even the quiet ones, has been a deliberate reconfiguration of your position in a game most don't even know they're playing. While others scramble for short-term comfort, you've been setting the stage for something enduring. The changes you've made, whether visible or subtle, have created ripples far beyond your own orbit. And the ones paying attention? They see it. Not as coincidence, but as evidence of someone who finally stopped asking for permission to dream out loud. Chasing after applause no longer appeals to you. That part of your life expired the moment you stopped letting other people narrate your worth. Something in you snapped, not in anger but in awareness. You withdrew what was once freely given, and suddenly, the silence around you became deafening to those who used to benefit from your overextension. You didn't get colder. You just stopped burning for those who never brought warmth. It's becoming clear now, what once felt like a liability is revealing itself as power. That depth of feeling? That intuitive tension in your chest when something's off? It's not weakness, it's intelligence with a heartbeat. You're not attracting attention because you're loud. You're drawing people in because you're real in ways they forgot were possible. And while some run from their own reflection, others are discovering a rare kind of peace in yours. They never expected you to change the rules. And now that you have, they don't know how to play the game anymore. That's what happens when someone finally realizes they were never weak. They were just surrounded by people who needed them to be. This isn't rebellion. This is reclamation. You stopped bending, and now the ones who leaned on your silence are crumbling under their own noise. Growth doesn't just reveal potential, it exposes dependency. And the friction you're feeling lately? That's not because you've become difficult. It's because certain people can no longer mold you into the shape they found most convenient. They're bitter not because you've done anything wrong, but because you've stepped out of the role they wrote for you without your consent. And instead of applause, they're offering accusations wrapped in guilt, hoping you'll shrink back into place. Distance often triggers desperation in those who were only ever loyal to what you gave them. The moment you stopped bleeding for others, they mistook your healing for hostility. But it's not malice, they're panicking. They assumed your compassion came with no boundaries. And now that it does, their outrage is simply the collapse of an illusion. What they call change is actually you remembering what it feels like to breathe without permission. Some haven't just stepped away, they've tried to trip you on your way forward. They've whispered, misrepresented, and plotted, thinking they could stall your momentum with shadows. But what they didn't expect was that every attempt to bury you would only deepen your roots. Each slight only confirmed what your spirit already knew. You're not climbing to prove a point. You're rising because your essence refuses to stay buried under anyone's projections. Lately, the clarity has been undeniable. There's no confusion about who's real anymore. Not because they confessed, but because your inner compass stopped entertaining the static. The insights come uninvited now, sudden flashes of certainty that cut through the noise. And the strange part? You're not surprised. You felt a shift in your own nervous system, like your entire being is allergic to anything fake. It's not about judgment. It's about resonance. They tried to make you believe that staying small was loyalty, that playing humble meant accepting less. But something inside of you didn't buy it. You didn't just walk away, you reclaimed the pieces of yourself they thought they'd scattered for good. And now, life's finally echoing your true rhythm. Not because you got louder, but because you stopped shrinking to keep their comfort intact. When energy is no longer drained by people who treat connection like a transaction, it begins to reshape the atmosphere around you. Without even realizing it, you started gathering that power inward, and what once felt like stagnation turned into forward motion. Subtle shifts began stacking up. Doors opening that once stayed shut, spaces expanding that used to suffocate, and a quiet alignment replacing the chaos you had normalized for too long. As this new reality forms around you, the true nature of others becomes impossible to ignore. The ones still clapping from a distance aren't there for the spotlight, they're resonating with your rise. They understand the difference between celebration and competition. Their support doesn't come with a hidden tab. They're lit up by your glow, not threatened by it, because they've done their own inner excavation, and they recognize the weight of yours. An unspoken authority is starting to pulse from your presence, but not in the ways people expect. It's not loud. It doesn't demand. It leads simply by being, by showing what happens when someone chooses alignment over applause. That quiet power is magnetic, not because it seeks to control, but because it offers direction without the need to dominate. And others, whether they admit it or not, are looking to you for cues they can trust. The plot twist no one expected? The ones who once tore you down now find themselves haunted by the outcome of their own pettiness. They're realizing, perhaps too late, that what they tried to discard was never replaceable. They don't miss your presence, they miss the access they fumbled. And the sting they feel? That's not remorse. It's recognition of how deeply they underestimated someone who wasn't built to stay buried. They thought your silence meant surrender. They assumed your stillness was weakness. But what they didn't see was the shift, how something ancient inside you started moving, claiming space you once abandoned just to survive. You didn't just walk away from who you used to be, you rewrote the entire blueprint. And now, the air around you feels different because you're not just healing, you're remembering. There comes a point when shrinking to fit becomes more painful than standing alone. The places that once felt familiar began to feel tight, like you were borrowing a life that never truly fit your spirit. What looked like walking away from the outside was really a graduation from patterns that no longer resonated. The exits you made weren't escapes, they were elevation. And anyone still talking about the past is only proving how far ahead you've moved. The attempts to derail your peace have only confirmed how magnetic your evolution has become. The louder the noise gets, the clearer your focus becomes. Those who couldn't tether your soul to their chaos now resort to tactics that expose their own fear of irrelevance. They never expected you to unplug from their control. And your refusal to be drained is being read by them as rebellion, because to someone who feeds on access, boundaries feel like betrayal. Something is shifting around you that logic can't quite explain. The timing of events, the way doors unfasten without you even knocking, the uncanny alignment of people and moments, it's all pointing to a deeper orchestration. Not mystical fantasy, but the natural echo of truth finally taking up space. What once felt like constant resistance has started to dissolve, not because you stopped trying, but because you stopped compromising. Failure no longer paralyzes you. Not because it disappeared, but because you've stopped letting it define you. Setbacks have become signals. Detours now read like direction. The identity that used to collapse under pressure has grown resilient, flexible, grounded. You don't fear missteps anymore, you use them. And that subtle shift has made you unstoppable. There's a certain calm you carry now that can't be mimicked. Not performative stillness, but real, lived through it all kind of calm. The kind that makes people pause mid-sentence and reassess their own noise. It's not loud, but it's felt. And those who've done their own inner excavation recognize it instantly. They're not drawn to what you say, they're drawn to what you've survived and how gracefully you carry the evidence. Deception used to confuse you, now it makes your stomach turn. You're no longer decoding words, you're reading vibration. And that sensitivity you once called too much has become a sharpened edge of discernment. You see what's unsaid. You feel what's hidden. And instead of questioning that gift, you've begun trusting it like a compass that's finally pointing north. This shift isn't just personal, it's spiritual. Your path has caught the attention of forces beyond logic. There's a quiet applause from realms unseen. Not because you won a fight, but because you remembered your worth. And that remembrance triggered a ripple. What's showing up in your world now, clarity, depth, flow, isn't coincidence. It's the return of everything you thought you lost when you chose to be real. They didn't see it coming, but the moment you stopped asking for space and started becoming space, something changed. You didn't rise by accident. You outgrew the patterns, the narratives, the ceilings that were never built for someone like you. And now, just by existing in your truth, you're activating silent revolutions in the lives of others. Not because you're trying to lead, but because you finally refused to follow. Real change doesn't announce itself. It moves quietly, reshaping you from the inside out. What began as a decision to stop tolerating what drained you has become something far more powerful. You've become a mirror, one that doesn't flatter or condemn, but simply reflects what's real. And without even trying, that honesty is sparking something in others. They're not just watching you evolve, they're feeling permission to evolve too. The early stages of becoming were heavy. Not because the path was wrong, but because solitude had to teach you what crowds never could. And now that silence has sharpened your insight. You no longer confuse absence with abandonment or solitude with loneliness. The shift isn't about detachment, it's about refinement. And with each step, you're finding connection that doesn't require translation. The recognition, the backlash, the strange magnetism surrounding your life, it all ties back to one undeniable truth. You've stepped into a frequency that few can sustain. There's a protective force in play now that shields without asking, redirects without warning, and clears paths before you're even aware of the obstacles. The attempts to block you? They're being returned to sender before they ever touch your momentum. They wanted to paint you as fragile, forgettable, replaceable. And yet here you are, untouched by their projections, unshaken by their silence. You didn't have to retaliate. Your evolution became the loudest answer. Every move you make now echoes louder than any rumor ever could. This isn't revenge, it's restoration. And it's happening in full view. What was once overlooked has become impossible to ignore. The same voices that dismissed your power are now left speechless by the clarity with which you move. The irony is poetic. They spent so much time trying to shrink your image only to end up highlighting your glow. Not because you became louder, but because the life you're building has made their old narratives irrelevant. The very traits they mocked have become the architecture of your momentum. The boundaries you've drawn weren't escape routes, they were blueprints. You didn't shut people out, you built new thresholds that only integrity could cross. And the ones who understand that aren't offended, they're inspired. They see what it took to rebuild from the pieces others tried to steal. They see the discipline it required to protect your peace even when it cost you comfort. They see a person who stopped trading truth for harmony. The energy surrounding you has shifted into something undeniable. Not aggressive, not forceful, just rooted. You're not seeking applause. You're not asking to be seen. And yet the world is turning toward you because your alignment is magnetic. You've stopped chasing what never deserved you, and that recalibration is being felt on every level. You've become a living reminder of what's possible when someone finally decides to stop betraying themselves. Now there's a pull around you that can't be explained. Strangers want your input. Allies arrive without warning. Collaborations unfold without needing to be forced. It's not coincidence, it's coherence. Your inner frequency has become so sharp, so precise, that it's attracting people and experiences that reflect your new standard. The invitation isn't verbal. It's energetic. And it's speaking to others who are just starting to remember who they are. Every choice you've made lately hasn't just been strategy, it's been ancient memory reactivating. You're not drawing on guesswork. You're pulling from lifetimes of insight stored deep in your bones. The clarity you carry, the timing of your decisions, the instinct to pivot when logic says, wait, that's ancestral intelligence guiding your steps. That's not luck. That's lineage whispering direction through your nervous system. The awe people feel in your presence has nothing to do with charisma. It's the rare silence of someone who has outgrown the need to prove themselves. The more you embody that stillness, the more others begin to sense they're witnessing something old and powerful in modern form. They don't just admire what you do. They're moved by what you've become. Not a product of pain, but a testament to what happens when pain meets purpose. They tried to label your worth as negotiable, something to be debated, bartered, or borrowed. But you've stopped showing up to the auction. You've stopped letting people estimate your value through the lens of their own limitations. And the moment you walked away from being underpaid in every way, emotionally, spiritually, financially, the universe stopped playing small with you too. Something inside has shifted so sharply that it now recoils at anything that feels like energetic imbalance. What used to pass as no big deal now sounds like nails on glass. The part of you that once tolerated being overlooked or underpaid has vanished. You're no longer interested in pretending that generosity means silence. You've realized that your energy carries measurable impact, and every moment you allow someone to discount that, you dilute the very source of your expansion. It's one of the hardest thresholds to cross, charging for what comes naturally to you. But that's exactly what you've been doing. Not out of pride, but out of principle. You've stopped tolerating the casual theft of your ideas, your brilliance, your time. And now the very same people who once dismissed your vision are scrambling to imitate it. The betrayal stings less now, not because it matters less, but because it finally confirms how potent your creativity truly is. Lately, the friction has become more targeted. It's not random. It shows up precisely where your light threatens to expose what others work hard to conceal. These aren't coincidences, they're collisions between purpose and opposition. And though the resistance feels personal, it isn't. It's systemic. Energies that feed on your doubt are starving. Environments that relied on your compliance are cracking. Every challenge is a signal that you're becoming unshakable. The ones closest to your history may not recognize you anymore. Their confusion is a side effect of your evolution. They're not trying to trap you, but their familiarity with your former self makes your expansion feel threatening. And you can feel it. The awkward pauses, the sideways comments, the invisible pull to come back down to earth. But you're no longer living on their schedule or subscribing to their limits. Time bends differently now. Things that once took weeks are now arriving overnight. Resources, ideas, solutions, they're appearing faster than logic should allow. It's not coincidence. It's not even momentum. It's alignment. When your vision, your values, and your energy finally agree, the external world shifts to match it. You're not moving faster. The noise around you is falling away, and what's left is clean, focused, divine precision. They didn't realize your silence was sacred, that your creativity wasn't just talent, it was transmission. While they chased applause, you became a living signal. And now, you're not just making things, you're revealing things. And those who feel it may not understand why, but they know something's different about the way you move, speak, and create. It's not performance. It's presence. What's been flowing through your hands lately has very little to do with ego. The work, the ideas, the expressions, they're not just personal ambitions. They're messengers. Every time you make something with full honesty, you're creating an opening. An opening for clarity, healing, and elevated thought to enter spaces that have long been starved for substance. That's why certain people find your creations hard to forget. They're not just observing, they're remembering something through you. You've grown intolerant of surface-level chatter. It's not rudeness, it's energetic necessity. There's an ache for connection that doesn't skim the surface. Your attention now seeks depth like a compass seeks north. Interactions that once seemed fine now leave you restless, as if your entire being has outgrown empty words. Others might label you distant, but it's not disinterest, it's hunger for resonance. The patterns in your sleep have become strange in a way that feels significant. What used to feel like ordinary dreams now feels like coded transmissions. Warnings, confirmations, clarity delivered through unfamiliar symbols. There are nights where it feels less like rest and more like briefing. And though your conscious mind may not remember every detail, your spirit wakes up already shifted. Sensitivity has become both your strength and your challenge. Environments that once felt neutral now overwhelm. Crowds feel louder. Emotions linger longer. But this isn't fragility, it's clarity. You're tuned in at a frequency that requires careful stewardship. This sharpened awareness doesn't just read emotions, it translates them. And that translation helps you move through life with a wisdom that can't be taught in words. You've been pulled away from danger without even realizing it. Strange redirections, last-minute changes, opportunities that vanish before they fully arrive, only for you to discover later that they weren't meant to protect your success but your soul. Something is guiding your steps in ways your logic can't explain. It's not luck, it's interference of the divine kind. Faces have become easier to read than words. You're no longer guessing people's motives, you're feeling them. A calm smile might hit your nervous system like static. A friendly tone might mask manipulation you can now spot in seconds. And this doesn't come from paranoia. It comes from memory, ancestral, spiritual, intuitive memory that now moves faster than language. They thought your glow-up was just a phase. But what's unfolding isn't surface, it's seismic. You didn't just level up. You broke a pattern, rewired the script, and now your existence itself is permission. The ones who used to watch in silence? They're now changing because of your example, not your explanation. That's the power of becoming exactly who you were told not to be. What's happening through you is bigger than personal success. It's energetic reform. Each time you choose integrity over impression, honesty over harmony, alignment over approval, you aren't just helping yourself, you're adjusting the collective field. You've become evidence that internal truth leads to external shift. And that quiet courage you've shown? It's echoing in hearts you'll never meet, giving them permission to live differently. The version of you that once tolerated crumbs no longer exists. The one that used to shrink for comfort is now commanding space with ease. That shift didn't happen because someone gave you permission. It happened the moment you stopped asking for it. And those who truly understand your transformation see the cost, the fight, and the fierce grace it took to stand your ground, not against others but against your former self. This evolution isn't being fueled by applause. It's being sustained by truth. And the people who get that? They're not clapping from the sidelines, they're joining the movement. They've witnessed the discipline it took to choose consistency over convenience. They've seen the weight of your boundaries and the sacredness of your standards. Supporting you isn't a favor. It's alignment. Your presence has become a ripple without force. Even those you've never spoken to are adjusting their choices after crossing paths with your work, your words, or your energy. It's not influence, it's transmission. You're not persuading, you're activating. And those who resonate don't want to copy you, they want to build with you. Your rise is no longer a spectacle. It's an invitation.